Hello everyone. I'm Rishi, a member of IIT Bombay ECM SIGCHI, and I'm also a student of Interaction Design in ITC School of Design. Today we have Rishi, Prachi, and Tanya, who who participated in student research competition, which was conducted by ACM last year, 2019, and then they secured various positions in different categories. So Rishi and Prachi secured first and second position in grad category respectively, and Tanya secured third position in undergrad category. So let's start with the introduction. Prachi, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi. So I'm a final year student at IDC School of Design, and I just completed the master's in interaction design. And yeah, that's I'll talk about the project, in the
Sure. Rishi, you want to go ahead now?
Okay. Hi, my name is Rishi. I was also a master student at the IDC in the interaction design program. And the project that I worked on was about accessibility and audio interfaces, but we'll get into that in a bit. Nice to be here.
Tanya?
Yeah. Hi guys, I am Tanya. I study at Shrishti Institute of Art, Design and Technology, and I'm in my final semester. And yeah, my paper is called Emote, Theatre and Movement as Research Tools. And yeah, excited to be here.
Okay, so my first question is for Prachi. So your project was about helping low literate parents to engage with their children and learning, right? So
yeah.
so this sounds like a problem which like everyone face and we are aware of it, but we never talked about it or never realized that it's a big problem to be researched on. So what was your motivation to take such topic and go ahead with it?
Well, so I was always interested in working in the space of education, and that is why I chose this area on sort of the broad area. And so there were, I think, one was, of course, this personal motivation, and another was a more functional motivation, where there was a PhD student in my college who was already doing this, a PhD in this area. So along with the fact that I was motivated to just do this, it made sense to take up this project and build on top of the research that has already been done, especially because in the kind of deliverable that is expected in an SRC, which might be like 2 or 3 months long project. So it makes sense to just build from something. So yeah, that was another sort of functional motivation behind it. And yeah, the other, because of the project being in like very user oriented, access to users, and I ticked all of those boxes that I have access to users, I will be able to contact them every week or every month, and those are the boxes that helped me then make a decision.
Nice. And what do you say? What was your most noticeable learning and most interesting part about the research you did for this project?
So one of the most interesting parts was to actually be on the field and be talking to the users, because this is a user group that is, I mean, a very, very specific type of question I was asking these teachers and students and parents in these small areas. So the kind of insights I got were really interesting, and the fact that it was not widely documented before was also interesting for me to sort of understand that in a context of how parental engagement happens. And the sort of more interesting things were to just coordinate with these people. Sorry, Yeah, so I directly contacted a school in order to start this project. It was not through an NGO or something. So building that rapport with the school principal, with the teachers, and making sure they consider the student researcher as important enough to, give them information was also a challenge. But I think it was a great learning also because of that.
Hmm. And like, when was the time you realized that you should write a paper on it and be a part of SRC?
So I think the idea of possibly writing a paper was there from the beginning, and
Okay.
that is why I even made sure to. I mean, even my guide, in fact, helped me out to make sure I am, following the research frameworks and just documenting things, and in a way that would help me write a paper later on. But yeah, with time, I realized that it could actually become a paper, and the SRC at CHI would be an ideal place for publishing it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And from your project report and all, I realized like you had some interesting findings and all. So I was just wanted to ask, like, you did your B.Des in design also, right? In
Yes.
New Delhi, right? Yeah. So
Lit
like,
Hyderabad.
oh, sorry, Hyderabad.
No.
Okay. So, being a designer, like, how do you think you train yourself to come up with ideas, and like, how does it helped in your masters in design again?
I think idea generation does become one of the hardest parts of the design process, but
Okay.
talking to people I've always thought was a very helpful way to
Mhm.
just come up with ideas. I would talk to Rishi, in fact, he's my classmate, so I would just,
Okay.
keep, just like these conscious stream of thoughts, and that would help out with the idea generation. And yeah, I mean, just I guess talking to people is the most important thing that helped me out a lot.
Okay. So, next question is for Tanya. So, your title for submission was Emote Theater and Movement Workshop as Research Tool, right? So, like, usually, like, it's very hard to form a link between the two domains, right? So, like, do you have a story about it? Like, how did you connected both of them?
Um, it's not a story.
Okay.
It just happened. I mean, I'm actively involved in theater and movement.
Hmm.
I'm a theater and movement practitioner myself, so I've been conducting workshops for the past 1 year,
Hmm.
and yeah, it just happened. Like while conducting one of these workshops, I realized that once a lot of these activities were done so that they express better, and they tell the points that they want to in their head through their body.
Hmm.
And more often than not, they're quite successful with it, apart from them being awkward at first, and making, and then you sort of loosen them up, and then towards the end of it they really get the point and they really express themselves. And I've conducted a lot of user interviews, and what happens is when people are speaking, uh, if they're very comfortable with me, they start using their hands, and get I get a lot of insights from what they're doing with their hands and their facial expressions and their emotion behind what they're speaking about, from those rather than what they're speaking. Because I realize, okay, they're happy about what, like, if for example I'm interviewing them about a certain situation or a certain product, then their face lights up, and I'm like, okay, so then they actually like that product, which means there is something to that product that I haven't seen, or even if I know it, it's just affirming that. So I thought, okay, so why not use this as a tool rather than just making them speak. That could be one medium as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just started out. I thought this is a great tool, and I started implementing it in my research. like methods, and I realized that it works, and it only adds to spoken interviews. So and I started looking at other papers that have used such a method, but there wasn't like a system or a model that used this. So I thought it was time for me to put forward something like this, because I truly believed in this sort of method to get to know the users better and understand your problems statement in depth. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And like, so when you wrote the like participated in SRC, so like, did it have any impact on your research or like the project, what you were working on?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
So like when you participated in the research competition, right? So did it
Right.
have any like effect on your research also? Like you want to like do it in this way and all?
No,
Okay.
I made sure that like I first did it, and
Okay.
then I thought, okay, now what do I need to put this down in? Like I anyway wanted it in writing,
Hmm.
but I used to just write down, what were the insights or what I want to accomplish in the next workshop, and I used to also observe workshops, as in like I wasn't just conducting them. I used to also attend workshops and see how other people conducted. So it was just like written notes and what sort of changes that I want to do. But the whole paper thing, it was at the back of my head, but I never really like pulled out their draft and saw like what all needs to be there. And then uh, when I did actually look at the draft and what needs to be there, it sort of just fit in. Like I just had notes. There were obviously a couple of tweaks or certain documentation that I needed to do, but apart from that, it wasn't like a huge deal. It just felt
Okay.
right in place.
Yeah, that's nice. And now I have a question for Rishi. So your project was accessible spatial audio interfaces and a pilot study into screen readers and concurrent speech, right? Yeah. So yeah. So what encouraged you to take this topic, and what was the motivation behind it?
Okay, so this kind of started off in a very unrelated area. So earlier in 2019, uh, at the IDC, we had this course that involved designing for visually impaired people, and we specifically looked at the problem of them not being able to identify the new currency notes that had been introduced in India at the time. And that was really the first experience of mine of being involved with visually impaired people, or in fact dealing with that real problem in general.
Hmm.
Most of my projects prior to that had been just sitting in my own room or sitting in the IDC working on something that seemed cool or interesting, but had not that much direct impact in the real world. Having done this really short course and having worked with visually impaired people for a while, I realized that what I managed to do in that course was really not significant enough, nor was I perhaps the best person to deal with that problem. So, when thinking about a problem to work on for my major project in the next semester, in my final year, I work in the same space, but look at something that I was a bit better at. And I thought that I was good at audio technology. I was interested in it and I'd done it in the past. So I basically tried to see where I could sort of use my expertise and try and solve this particular problem that I thought was this problem area actually. Like, and then it sort of moved to more natural audio interfaces that blind people actually use. So it started off as a very broad project. How do you use spatial audio to help them in some way? But over the course of the 3-4 months of my project, it different place.
Okay. And like you have already written this paper, and you're currently writing two couple of more papers, right? So I just want to ask,
Mm-hmm.
like, what do you think, like, why research is important for designers as well, and like, what impact does it make to our education?
Okay, so I'll just put this out there. We probably don't have to get into it in detail. I don't think there is a distinction between a designer and a researcher. And I think that where you are coming from, where we came from, it kind of feels like an artificial division. Like everyone works on projects that matter to them, and projects involve design and research. Just a matter of what you're doing the project for and where you're doing it. Uh, Frankly, every design project involves a lot of research.
Hmm.
Be it at the start of the project, trying to find the problem, trying to talk to users, understand where you can actually work. And then after designing, ideating, much the same happens in research as well. Perhaps the only difference is in the manner of communicating or documenting your work. Because research has a lot more focus on this conference model where you write papers, you make posters, and you talk about your work in conferences. Whereas design is perhaps a lot more out there in the field where you deploy things and you just look at user feedback in a sense. So I really don't think I'll be able to answer why research is important. I think research is important for everyone. It's just a question of what you focus on. So
Yeah.
That's about it for now.
And like you guys have written papers in SRC, so I just want to ask, like, what was your experience writing it in terms of like managing it with academics and your other work, and then so how did you guys manage that?
Should I go first, or
Yeah,
is
yeah,
this
yeah.
directed at someone?
No, anyone
Okay.
can.
I think in all three of our cases, we really didn't think about the SRC as a different effort from our academics. For example, Tanya just mentioned that she worked on the project and focused on that first before actually looking at the SRC as a submission venue. And I think the same goes for both Prachi and me. We worked on this as an academic project in the autumn of 2019. And it was only after the project was done that we sort of looked at SRC as a venue and try to rework our submission to that. First, I did in the manner of a paper because I wanted it to stand as a research contribution. So all I really had to do was kind of cut down the paper and scale it down to the much shorter version that is required for the research competition. And like Tanya mentioned, I feel like my project already was done in a manner that suited a research paper, and that it kind of fit into what was being expected from the venue. So I didn't have a lot of trouble over there.
Okay. And
I would like to agree with Rishi. And also the fact that, like, you mentioned how was the experience. I think, especially for me, I really enjoyed the whole user testing process of it, because it was just, it was what I'd begun with. It was user testing which led me to think, okay, this could be something. And then when I actually had something in mind, it just got more interesting, because there was already a purpose over there, but it just had more meaning to it when I was conducting it with proposing it as a model. So to be honest, the user testing was one of my favorite phases of the project. And actually sitting and writing is something that I'm like, okay, but to be honest, to actually put it down, put all your insights down was really interesting, because I was very like, oh, I need to write this down, I need to write that down, and then formatting is when you sort of get tied up and you're just like, okay, this requires a little bit more attention, this requires a little bit more focus. So that would probably be one of my less interesting aspects of writing a paper. But I think in general, the whole process of the research itself, of user testing, of secondary research, all of that was really interesting and fun for me. And I think that's mainly because it was a personal project, and it just came out of purely out of I love doing theater, I love doing movement, and I like teaching that, and I like researching in that process. So yeah.
nice. Prachi, you have anything to add to it?
So one thing that I sort of did at the end of this SRC process was just So this was the first time I wrote a paper or any sort of paper. No, I mean I had never written an academic sort of publication type writing ever. So what I did was just download, the past 4 SRCs winners, the top 3 papers for the past 4 years, and just went through how the kind of language they use, the way they've positioned their project, and all of that really helped me write my paper. So it was like secondary research for that paper writing part also. So yeah, I think that helped me a lot.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Also, like when this COVID situation started, you guys must be working on your own projects and had some expectations of user research and all, right? So how did you guys manage to do that once like everything was shut and like you had to go ahead with your projects?
To be honest, I was shattered because the whole my whole user testing was based on like people physically being there. So I did try to do it online, but it failed miserably because I was not in the headspace, or I had not really um, I was not equipped to do it online. And even though the activities could be tweaked, I was just sort of figuring it out. So it requires a couple of more workshops. So I have to workshop the workshop to make it online. But the fact that I had already done a lot of workshops till then, I could move ahead with whatever number of workshops I'd done and all the insights that I'd gathered for the project. And obviously I was sort of doing it with the people in whom I could be in touch with. So those sort of physical workshops, I was still able to do it, but it wasn't that required because I have done quite a few before, so it just sort of worked out that way.
Okay. For you, Prachi and Rishi, how was the experience?
So okay, I'll just go first then. So in my case, I was doing a service design project in the sort of space of education again, for an NGO in Pune. And yeah, I mean, I was supposed to go there, and since it was a service design project, it was mostly just me talking about the possible service, maybe prototyping a few small parts, or few small interactions, the encounters with them, and yeah, moving between these two aspects. So yeah, the encounter, like prototyping part, actually did not end up happening because there was no way I could, I mean, I had the material, I could have sent it to them, got them to print it out, but even that was not possible. So most of it became, video calls or sending them small videos of like 5-7 minute videos to watch, and then do a interview after that. So that sort of format worked for me. In fact, I like that better than doing video calls, because on video calls there's so much disturbance, people are a little antsy, like, okay, this explanation is going on for too long. But if you give them a 5-minute video, they're happy, like, oh, I've seen the video and now let's talk, and then they'll give their opinions for the next 10 minutes. So yeah, that's yeah, that's mostly what happened.
Okay. Yeah, for you, Rishi.
Yeah, so about that, yeah. So the accessibility project was not something I could work on remotely at all. I'd been meaning to, like, it wasn't part of my main project, and I'd been meaning to sort of speak to more visually impaired people, understand why my prototype didn't work, and probably build more things to send across to them. But frankly, once lockdown hit, I felt it would be wrong to really, like, that there are bigger problems, and maybe my research was not the most important at this point of time, and which is why I kind of took a step back, and I'm working on the prototypes myself, but I'm not. I would see myself as burdening a visually impaired person if I were to ask them for their time, even when things are so difficult right now.
Right.
So I really couldn't work on that project. My other project, which was about augmented reality interactions, was anyway very tech facing. So I didn't have to interact with a lot of people to begin with. And the only change I really made that kind of benefited my own project was to focus on a really finished outcome, like make a very finished application I could just send to people and have them test it at their own time and in their own leisure. So yeah, I feel like while I couldn't work on the accessibility project, my other project has not been affected by the lockdown as much. So I got lucky in that sense.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah. So I have covered like most of the questions I had. So if you guys want to give a piece of advice for the people who wants to write a paper or like work on a research project, what would it be?
I guess I would just say write. Like, if you want to write a paper, I think you should go ahead and write, because it was on my mind since I was in second year, because that's when my facilitators sort of told me about CHI and told me about all the conferences and told me, like, exposed me to the whole like research aspect of it. And every year I was like, okay, this is my year, this is my year. And I always had an idea, but I just felt like I didn't have enough content, or I didn't do enough research, and it just stopped me from writing. But I was in my final year, and I was like, if I don't write now, then I won't have a chance to apply to this category ever again. So I just went, like, and to be honest, I didn't even like Prachi said, she downloaded all of these SRC papers and stuff. I was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't have enough time on my hands to do anything. I'm just going to write, and I'm just going to blindly send it in. And yeah, I guess that was that. So just write. Don't care about if you followed the method, or if you feel like you've not done enough research, because once you've actually put it down on paper, you'll realize, okay, how much more is there to do, and how much, like, and where you stand. So that's when you'll realize. Otherwise, you'll just be pushing it and pushing it and pushing it.
Okay. Rishi, you want to say something about it?
All right. So I guess there are a couple of points. So firstly, I didn't like the student research competition was not the reason I worked on my project,
Right.
nor was it the reason I became interested in research. Like,
Okay.
and like I the idea of doing research and working on problems that mattered to me in an academic setting is something that's been with me since slightly before beginning the design program as well at IDC. So I feel like if whoever is watching this is interested in research and has maybe looked at a few papers already, or is working on a project of their own, I guess one goal of any research project is to document it well, is to write it down well, and in a manner that you'll be able to share with other people. And once you do that, and once you finish your project, you can then take a call on where you want to showcase your work and where you want to get feedback from. So I've been in 2019, having done my project. I always knew that I was going to probably submit it somewhere to get some kind of feedback. So in my case, the project that governed my decision to submit to the student research competition was I felt like my project research paper, which is why I thought it probably would need more time before it would be a full paper. And as Tanya mentioned, it was my it was also my final year in the M.Des program. And if I didn't submit it to the student research competition now, I wouldn't be able to in the future. So I really wanted to see what it would be like to get the kind of focused feedback that you'd get in a student research competition, because it is a pool of students that has student work. So I felt like that would be a more fair assessment of my work as an individual student, as opposed to say sending it as a full paper and being judged against research labs and groups that have been doing this for a very long time. So as a first step in research, the student research competition is definitely a really good place to start off with. But then if you have been doing research, the choice of venue is something that you would be a much better judge of. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think Rishi mentioned one of the points that I would have liked to talk about, which was to document work. And I realized I also built on that skill through the project. And
Okay.
especially because I was say going to this village or like this small school in the outskirts of the city. I couldn't even take recordings of them because they were all getting anxious of that, because of that whole act of making it more like interrogative. So yeah, all of that. So in fact, what happened was my mom came with me in one of these user research sessions, like for a project on parental engagement. My mom came along with me, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I think that was also nice to have this support system in place to help me out with work. And so I think for projects like these where so much user research is required, a single person just going to a new place and doing, just talking to users is not ideal. One or two people are required. But again, I'm digressing though. But yeah, all of this sort of helped in how I documented the process, and that in the end led to a more rich paper. I mean, it was difficult to just put everything in just 6 pages, almost 5 actually, 1 page of references. But yeah, so that helps in just making the paper. Just adding so much information in one line was a challenge, but it was interesting and fun as well.
Yeah, so that's all from my side. You guys want to talk anything? We can just chill now.